Hello and welcome to the classroom. This is Jake B-Man with Golden Fox Farms. Today we're going over my presentation, Making Meetings Work, the importance of a strong bee club. A lot of bee clubs are facing challenges these days with recruitment and retention. This program looks into that some, and it looks how we built our own local club for success and tools you can use in your own endeavors. Now, the outline of this, we're going to talk about the benefits of having a good bee club, the organizational structure of that club to make it function best, events and programming to have as part of your schedule, and dealing with conflict, because conflict is going to happen in these things, and also volunteering. Now, I'm your speaker. I'm Jake B-Man. If you're watching this on my YouTube, you have seen this before. I'm an EAS and Cornell Master and EAS Lifetime member. I have about 125 hives in the greater Louisville area that I do a little bit of everything with. Let's see here. Benefits of a strong bee club. First off, there's the community aspect, the social aspect. Thank God someone else for you to talk to about bees. We all love to talk bees. We all love to hear about bees. There's a reason you're on YouTube watching bee shows. It's stuff you want to be part of. There's peer support. Beekeeping can be wildly challenging. I know I killed all my bees my first year because I was just outgunned by the challenges at hand and was unprepared for them. And even further, when you have those challenging years, having a peer group that's going through the same thing is very beneficial. And also, there's networking and friendships. I moved to the community I live in now when I was 36 or so, 35. That is the perfect age to never make a new friend. If you don't do something to get out and about and participate in things. So it's been a real benefit for me having that networking and friendship function of the clubs. Now, commercial, the financial aspects of these things. How's it good for you? Well, group purchase of materials or bees. Over the years, my club has purchased skids of frames and foundation. The costs crash down when you buy at scale, and that's a way for you to access those savings without being a sideliner or commercial sized beekeeper yourself. That's a good place to buy and sell surplus. In my community, we usually have a surplus of bees come May, and that means our community members can buy from our fellow beekeepers. That reduces the amount of imports, the amount of disease that's shipped into our area. Just a universally good thing to have happen. There's also group sales opportunities where, like, we will organize a honey booth at community events that our members can come and retail their honey at as a group rather than managing their own individual booth scheduling, etc. Now, going on from that, we have educational benefits of a good club. You can learn from every beekeeper. Even like a second-year beekeeper can teach a 10-year beekeeper something. It might be how not to do something. It might be better ways to go about their business. This past year, I was up at Mike Palmer's place for 10 days. Uh, it blew me away the amount of stuff he does different than what I have seen in my own locale. And there's a lot of things to pick up and carry back with that. That said, these are also how you access your local resources with your bee club. The local resources are often the best resources for your beekeeping. In my own community, we just had North American Honeybee Expo. I'm sure it was a great program, but for the middling beekeepers from my region that were attending, the closest beekeepers came from hundreds of miles away that were speaking. So they really didn't have the ability to give a local perspective on colony management. Randy Oliver is one of the speakers. Randy is very well known, especially on the West Coast. He has some really neat approaches to things, but those same approaches are very challenged by our different local conditions. So it's not a universal thing. That's why you need to seek out the local resources for the best advice for how to manage your colonies. And also realize experience is expensive. I have learned a lot of things through experience. It's always costly. If you can learn from someone else's experience, that's a great savings for you. And these local clubs have people that have local experience, and that is a huge thing for you to access to take advantage of. Now let's go into structural stuff, organization. We're going to talk about corporate organizing, staffing, meeting needs, meeting types, and dealing with conflict. So let's go into corporate organizing. Basically, all of these clubs have a set of rules they operate by. These are known as bylaws and general operating guidelines. Bylaws are usually the legal required stuff for the incorporation, while GOGs are more flexible. General operating guidelines are more flexible and tell you how to handle odds and ends. Like in my own club, bylaws covers elections. Bylaws covers who has access to the checkbook and what dollar figure of purchases they can make. GOGs tell us how to set up field days. GOGs also tell us, like, if we have a beekeeper death, we reach out to the family. The president reaches out to the family to offer the club as a resource for dealing with those leftover bees, because we know bees do not wait around well, and dealing with a probate estate to find that out is usually a very bad formula. Now, integrated into these bylaws and GOGs is the mission, value statements, and goals, and these must be reassessed over time. Mission is why you have a club. Value statements inform that. Goals inform that. So you need that mission statement to understand what the club is for. My own club's mission statement includes things about education for beekeepers, education for the community, and helping create a competitive market for honey retail. So every opportunity that pops up, we need to look, does this fit with our mission statement? Do we want to open a teaching apiary in a public park? Does that work for our public education? Does that work for our beekeeper education aspects? Equally, do we want to pay for a booth at such and such carnival event for our beekeepers to be at, both as a public information thing and as a honey retail thing? These are what drives those decision making. And also, transparency builds trust with these rules because it shows shared values, it establishes ground rules, and establishes expectations. I know when I go into a meeting, we're going to have a certain decorum, there's going to be a certain flow to how things are. I know if there is a sale event that I'm going to have as much opportunity to sell as any other member of the club. We don't build barriers to each other. We all know what to expect going into things. It is transparent. Now, staffing-wise, staffing at a minimum, a bee club needs a president, treasurer, and secretary. My local club is a 501c3. In the state of Kentucky, you need 3 board members to be a 501c3 at a minimum. But you can have more than that. Ours has 5. And there's some staffing additions that are optional, but I really recommend them. Case in point, vice president. And realize these additional jobs can be combined because our vice president also serves as the sergeant at arms and quartermaster. So the vice president is in charge of ensuring decorum at meetings. So if anybody gets a little rowdy, he's the one who gets to step in. And quartermaster means he keeps track of club equipment. This would be the communal extractor. That's really the extent of club equipment we have, but some clubs have oxalic vaporizers and just all sorts of other tools available for their members. I myself am both the program coordinator and education coordinator for my club, so I handle scheduling classes and presentations. Some clubs have individual people for each of these. Large clubs like Long Island Beekeepers, I believe they've got a board member for each one of these positions individually. So you have a program coordinator that handles the outside speaker, and you have an education coordinator that handles the internal educational programming that they operate. Real fascinating thing to see how other clubs do stuff. Now, meeting types. These are the kind of meetings you can expect your club to have. General educational, that is our monthly get-togethers, general educational. We also have social events like potlucks, dinners, and roundtables. I like to sprinkle those in because it kind of breaks up the monotony of a general education class every month. Beginners instruction, we actually took the tactic of doing a joint beginner program in my region because every year you have beginners come in, and if you don't stop and teach to the beginners, every meeting becomes a beginner's class. And that can really sour your more experienced members from returning. And you can also have some more experienced members espousing their own beliefs, whether they're right or wrong, to those beginners, and it just kind of muddies the waters. So we like to do a beginner class separate and we work with several clubs in our area just because that way we can handle that volume of beginners without investing a bunch of resources directly. Uh, Advanced instruction, this is going to be like grafting classes, wax working classes, honey working classes, producing alternative products besides just extracted honey, special events, conferences, outside speakers, field days, Xmas party. We do a Christmas party at our club, and we might move it to a Thanksgiving party next year just because it's one less thing in December. Outside speakers kind of make a regular meeting a special event, and I really recommend you bring in some outside speakers and have a budget for it. Pay them an honorarium, pay them travel. Conferences are also a special tool because it brings people in from the area, not just your regular every month people. So you can get a bigger cohort in there to kind of get your programs established. Field days are also exceptional for educational opportunities. A lot of beekeepers never see someone else work a hive, as strange as that sounds. And the opportunity to work in hives with other beekeepers can be rare for many people too, and they're excellent learning opportunities. And also there's business meetings. Now, my club originally, back in the olden days, we just had one meeting a month. It was everything. So it was your general education, it was your business, it was your social, if that was part of it. And the problem with that is depending on the business at hand, the business section could be anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 hours. And it really became untenable to try to put that together with an education thing because now you're looking at 2 or 3 hours sitting in a chair, a hard chair at that. And we really couldn't predict how long meetings could last. So we split business off to its own separate meeting, and we handle that exclusively by Zoom. So it's very easy for our business, our board, to meet remotely via Zoom and handle all that minutia without clogging up the works of a general meeting. And it's really the way to do it. Now, every meeting needs an agenda, amongst other things. An agenda is the place where you put what's going to happen together. It's your schedule, so to speak. So you know if you need to have an announcement, it's on the agenda. So one, it happens where it's supposed to, and two, you don't forget about it. Because I know I forget about things all the time. This also tells other people that are attending or interested in attending or choosing not to attend the meeting what's going to be in it, if it's something important to them or not. So get those agendas published and get them out early so people can know if the meeting is relevant to them. You need someone in charge. And preferably they need to be fluent in Robert's rules as the usual operating system that is used in the United States. And you need an effective facilitator, someone that can keep stuff moving, someone that knows how to table stuff when it's at an impasse. So you don't just rattle on about these same complaints for hours on end. It needs a start time, and you need to respect the start time. My old club went through a terrible period where we had no one in charge and no agenda, and it was just kind of a mass of humanity that would show up between 7:30 and 9 on the last Thursday of the month or whatever it was. It was really untenable. You need a start time, and you need an end time or an ideal end time, how long that thing's going to run. And this is especially true for business meetings. It's good to have a fixed, we're going to end by time with business meetings, because sometimes they just get too dang long. You have too much stuff to deal with, and some things you got to table and keep moving so you don't end up wasting precious time. So just be aware of that as you plan these things out. Now, conflict. Conflict is a big part of beekeeping. Beekeepers are every slice of the human spectrum. And I mean that. From the farthest left to the farthest right people in your community, they're going to be represented at your bee club. It really draws from the extreme ends in a big way. And you need to remain inclusive. And that includes different approaches to beekeeping, some that you will agree with and some that you will not. It's okay to voice your opinion on them, just don't make it become a problem. Now, there is a warning here about remaining inclusive, and I refer to Jurassic Park and other bee club traps. When I first joined my club where I live now, I called it Jurassic Park because it was full of dinosaurs. These were really old guys that were grumpy as all can be that would run off newcomers. And I mean that quite literally. They would run them off. They would be asocial towards them. They'd be grumpy towards them. And those people just wouldn't come back. And they also were very tied to their ways. They would buy packages every year at the lowest price they could. They would buy mite treatments as a group, and they would predictably kill most of their bees every year. And it was just a really grotesque situation. But the problem with being Jurassic Park and full of dinosaurs is they didn't adapt and evolve with times. And the meteor was coming. In my club's instance, the meteor was COVID. COVID disrupted our ability to meet in person. The old timers could not adapt to a Zoom paradigm, and they just kind of disappeared into the ether. And in all fairness, the club has had a resurgence since we lost that cohort of grumpy old dudes. So, watch out for that trap, Jurassic Park. Now, clubs are, like I said, an ample opportunity for conflict. I think beekeepers on the whole have asocial tendencies, and there's a lot of emotional immaturity. It's a lot of old dudes that are used to being on their own. There's a reason we're preferring to work with boxes of stinging insects as opposed to cavorting with people during our free time. And emotional immaturity, that's just run amok in our society today. There's people that cannot handle conflict or being told they're wrong or being told their kids are horrid little things that need to be locked up. So anyway, realize that's part of the headwinds we're heading into. Beekeepers also have extremely differing management styles and approaches. There's everything from treatment-free to those people that hit their highs 4 times a year with mite treatment products, and those people do not mix very well. And we have to just kind of accept the fact that we're going to have different ways of doing things. My management style today would be grotesque to some people. Because I do very little treating at this point, but it's because I've bred for that and built for that. So it can be almost antithetical to get these people together. So just be aware that that's going to be out there, and that's just the nature of the beast. There's also fear of change. In my local club, one year, it was the last year we did a group package buy, and the reason why it was the last year we did a group package buy is the packages had 100% mortality when we had our first good freeze in October. And I can blame a lot of things on beekeepers, but 100% mortality, that's a different monster altogether. And we realized we really couldn't do packages anymore. So, alternatively, a group of us got together to produce nukes from our survivor colonies. And one of the things we really didn't expect or foresee was how much resistance we would have to that. There were people that really thought we were ripping them off, going away from that package model to the nuke model, even though our club members today have extreme success compared to many groups because we went away from that package model. So fear of change is a very real thing you're going to encounter with these groups. There's also jockeying for sales, and this one can get ugly. To an extent, the market for local honey is fixed. There isn't an unlimited number of buyers for local honey, at least in my area. Maybe your area has a tighter market than mine does. But that can end up with people trying to one-up each other on sales. And this is something we need to watch for. Like, we can't control farmers markets and who they do or don't allow in, but we can control, like, our club-sponsored events. Like, if we have a honey table, well, guess what? We're all selling each other's honey, and we're giving samples of each other's honey because we work together on this thing. You can't let people take advantage of these situations or domineer them. And also realize beekeeper growth is conflict-driven. You have to take disparate ideas and crash them into each other to find out what actually works for you. And that's a pretty noisy, grisly process, but that's how we do things. So realize beekeeper growth is conflict driven. If you don't have conflict in your beekeeping, you're either the perfect beekeeper, congratulations, or you're not questioning how you're doing things. And that's a terrible way to approach anything. So let's go further into understanding conflict. There's 2 different kinds, really, or 2 different flavors. There's constructive versus destructive. We want to keep on the constructive side of conflict. Now, conflict is just the incompatibility between 2 or more opinions, principles, or interests, treatment-free versus treat them all, etc. Feeding versus no feeding, that's another good one. But understand, Absence of conflict is not a positive measurement of trust and collaboration. If you have trust and collaboration, you're going to have people disagreeing so they can eventually get to their own idealized answers. Now, of the two types, constructive, that is debating ideas, that is working through competing interests, that is growing towards something, and is absolutely necessary for beekeeper growth. The other end is destructive, and these are your dogmatic approaches. These are your we always do it this way because this is how we do it things. These are your grudges. These are your ad hominem attacks or personal attacks. Attacks on the individual bringing an idea as opposed to the idea itself. And equally hoarding opportunities that others lost. There's clubs in my area where if you go to their county, the only honey you ever see for sale is sold by the president of that club. There's people that run these things as their little fiat, their own little world, and that is a terrible approach to these things because it's going to fail. It's going to fall apart. Now, heading off destructive conflict. Keep cool heads. First off, decentralized power. Some clubs have a strong president. The problem with that is you get the wrong person in there, they're going to run amok on everybody. So you decentralize that power amongst the disparate board members. So no one really has full reign of the club. It's ran like a democracy. That's the idea with that. You want a politics-free zone. Again, beekeepers represent, in many respects, the two different ends of the horseshoe. There's extreme left and extreme right in these rooms. There's different places to have political discussions. Have them there. This space is for beekeeping stuff. Make opportunities equitable. If everyone has a fair chance to sell honey, if everyone has a fair chance to sell nukes, that takes a lot of the steam out of destructive conflict. Live and let live. I see people that run bees in ways I never would, and it appalls me. They're out there. Yeah, you can't change their minds. A lot of people didn't reason themselves into that corner that they're in, and you're not going to be able to reason them out of that corner they didn't reason themselves into in the first place. So just understand you're going to have people that do things very differently than yourself. I myself have a beekeeper down the road from me. I don't think he's ever treated his hives. He has major mite losses every year. They pour my way when it happens. That's just the nature of beekeeping. There's nothing you can do to fix that in terms of by decree. Now, beware of ownership and white knuckling. This is something I see more and more often, where you have someone invest very heavily in a club, and they don't want to let go of it afterwards. And what can happen with this is you have people that are entrenched in their ways that just keep doing things the same way they have been for years, and the club stagnates. Or people really should be moving on to other roles and letting other people step up. And again, the club stagnates. So watch out for that in particular. Realize these clubs are just vehicles that serve the people that are in them, and that you don't have ownership of it. Unless you're there running things, it's not yours anymore. And that's a very difficult lesson for a lot of people to understand. It can lead to a lot of bitterness when things change, but that's the nature of these things. It's really just a vehicle for whoever is there. Now, when things break down, you're going to have this destructive conflict show up. How do you disrupt it? How do you stall it? How do you defray it? Regardless of best intentions, is going to happen. When needed, direct management and intervention in conflict protects the club and its members. Own it. I can't tell you how many times I have witnessed an otherwise healthy and functioning agency not manage an interpersonal conflict, not do anything to defray it, and just watch it boil and bubble and then take out everything. I've seen this several times. There's been a lot of people who have been booted out of presidential roles because of things like this. It is something you really have to watch for. Now, decisive and effective intervention ices conflict. And you can revise or refine on a later date. You can come back to it, like tabling something. Like we're done talking about this at this meeting. We can bring it back up next time. Just putting that little barrier in and letting people cool down before we open things back up can often solve a lot of problems. Now realize non-intervention, like if you're just going to let stuff run amok, or if you're going to draw the wagons around one person and say the other person's wrong without giving them an opportunity to present their case, that causes those parties to seek satisfaction directly and often through less constructive means. What do I mean by that? That means they're going to make this stuff personal, and they're going to wage war on each other. Uh, a few years back, not even a few years back, one of the agencies around here had an outgoing board member that blasted everyone on their way out, and the board really didn't pivot and deal with that. They just ignored it. And what that really did was allow that wound to fester in those board members that were targeted by that person that was leaving. It just left a bad taste in the mouth for everyone involved. In other places, I've seen people really chased out of their jobs because these conflicts weren't dealt with, and they just got worse and got worse and got worse. And those people who couldn't find satisfaction through the group, through the club, sought satisfaction elsewhere, and they got it. Now, understand, only police what is worth policing. There are limits to what behaviors a club can police, and a club cannot cure or own all of them. You're going to have bad things happen, and there's nothing you can ultimately do to stop all of them. But also, pick your battles. Like we have people that regularly get into tiffs on our Facebook page and then complain to the admins about needing to deal with something. No, no. You're going to have to be adults and figure this out on your own. We can't be the arbiters of discussions unless there's some egregious behavior occurring that justifies us intervening. So there's limits to what you can do. Pick your battles with this thing. Now, tools for intervention. What to do when stuff starts going haywire. One, sergeant at arms. That is the person that's in charge of maintaining decorum at a meeting. They're the ones who step in. They're the ones who kick people out. If stuff gets haywire, it shouldn't get that bad. You should really step in before you're at that point so you can table things. For years, we had people complaining about the price of state fair honey, and it would consume entire meetings. And the way you deal with that is you table it for discussion next time. Let them build their facts. Let them bring their prepared arguments next time. You table it. Give them time to cool down. Give it a month to bake off. Half the time, they won't even talk about it again, and it's a moot point for everyone. There's committees. This is where things can be really beneficial to stand up a committee, and I didn't really talk about committees earlier. You can stand up committees for anything that requires more than a quick discussion and vote at a meeting. And that's what we use them for ourselves. Case in point, we have a committee on the nonprofit incorporating. We have a committee on T-shirts and swag and getting that stuff ordered and put together because they're kind of involved things with a lot of steps. You can also have committees that approach difficult problems, like these issues between different beekeepers. They can kind of step in and arbitrate that thing and ease the thing. They can work on it as a group on their own time outside of the organized meetings in front of everyone else. And that's usually a much more conducive environment to make these things patch up. Now, lastly, there's arbitration or court. I've seen some things happen in these B groups that really should have gone to court. People should have sued each other and gone to court and gone to trial. So that way they could be settled, as opposed to just festering for years and years and years. Some people have to go that way. Some people are just that tiled in, that cemented into their position, or that's what you have to do, and that's okay. That's what the courts are for. That's what arbitration is for. But realize there's limits to what you can do as a club, and eventually you got to jettison these people into that environment if they won't hear otherwise. Now, going on into volunteering, this is what keeps the club together. It's what keeps the club functioning. B clubs need volunteers. They need they're who fills these roles. They're what makes the wheels turn. We need a multitude of people to handle the scope of opportunities. My club, we couldn't do it as a one-person show. We've got a dozen public speaking opportunities. We have a dozen educational meetings. We've got the beginner programs. We have the Nuke sales programs. We have the Facebook page. We've got Queen sales. You need people to figure this stuff out. And you need a lot of people in different roles, and we can use our different strengths in those different roles. Clubs fail when too much depends on one individual, and these failures can occur in parallel. Years ago, my club had one president, and when she didn't invest time to make everything happen as that one president, The meetings were a total waste of time. We were disorganized. We didn't have any group anything going on. It was just a bunch of old guys getting together to complain about stuff, and it was horrendous. And there's a reason why it was, because it was way too much for one person to deal with. You have to spread this workload out if you want it to be dealt with in an effective way. And along these lines, get off the bench. Make the club what you want. Be the change you want to see. There are plenty of lower key roles in these clubs to be had. Just working a table at a public meeting can take a lot of pressure off other board members so they can deal with the other fires that need dealing with. So please, for the love of Pete, volunteer and help out at your club when the opportunities come up. Don't wait around to be asked. They're too busy to ask everyone. Volunteer. Let your availability be known to your board members and help the club be what it's supposed to be. Now, as a volunteer, you're the club's life force. You're what makes the meetings happen. You're what makes the Christmas party happen, whatever. When things go wrong, and they will, don't take it personally. I know I've prepared for a class for hours and hours, and we had a weather event, and 9 people showed up. And I was just so beside myself with anger that I spent so much time making this class no one was going to see. That happens. You just have to roll with it. And realize clubs are a vehicle for the people in them. This is something I've said earlier. The club's only going to do the stuff you want the club to do if you're part of the club making that stuff happen. So realize it's just a vehicle, and if you're in the vehicle, you can do stuff with that vehicle. And sometimes the vehicle's going to do stuff you don't want it to do. Don't take it personally. Pick and choose what's worth doing. I work a lot with the Kentucky State Beekeepers Association. I don't agree wholeheartedly with what they're doing on many things, but there's plenty of places we can work together, and we do. And that's going to cause real good, positive change for Kentucky beekeepers. And know your limits and prioritize. I said earlier, clubs fail when too much depends on one individual. I have an unlimited list of unpaid opportunities as a master beekeeper to invest my precious hours on this planet. I need to prioritize because some projects, some goals are far more important to me than others. So that's where I need to spend my time, because if I didn't, I'm going to spend my whole lifetime working on stuff I really don't care about. And you only get one shot at this thing. So prioritize. Know where you want to spend your time. If you're watching beekeeping videos, you really like bees, and you understand what prioritizing can be like, because bees need a lot of attention at certain times of the year. So just know your limits. Don't overextend yourself. That's what leads to burnout. And prioritize. Now, personal benefits. What have I achieved through my bee clubs? Well, one, lifelong friendships. Like I said, I moved out here in my mid-30s. That's the perfect age to never make another friend. I've got some really good friends out of the bee club. I'm really thankful for that, especially since, as anyone who's moved or anything like this, you lose a lot of that friend base as you move on in life. And this kind of let me refill it, so to speak. And that's been an extreme benefit, physically and mentally, for that matter. I have shepherded over 100 beekeepers through beginner classes. It's probably closer to 150, or it'll be 200 after this next year. That's a lot of people I was able to give a much better start than I had as a beekeeper. And they have much better survival and success because of that. I built a swarm program that has had, it's well over 100 at this point, swarm captures. We pooled all of our resources into a single swarm group, so when a call would come in, it would get the broadcast to everyone. So we were always able to find someone that was available to take these swarm calls, and it kind of made it equitable for everyone. This kind of ties back to making your opportunities equitable as a club. Well, if you're on the swarm team, you get the message the same time everyone else does. And the first person that calls back the person that called in, that can be there in an hour, gets to take the call. That's about as equitable as it gets, both for the beekeepers, the person calling the swarm in, and the swarm themselves. So, that's a great way to do things. We also started a conference in my hometown of Louisville, which I thought was long needed and goes on to this day. Now, I've also been able to take advantage of several growth opportunities, like Nukin equipment sales. I sell beekeeping equipment because I was buying a lot of it, and I realized I was able to buy it a lot cheaper than my peers could buy it for directly. So I started reselling some of that. So that's been an interesting thing. And nuke sales. Oh, for the love of Pete, nuke sales. I've had like 95% survival for like the last, 7 years, 8 years. Your options are either oodles of growth because bees want to triple themselves in the spring, or selling nukes. And I'm thankful I'm able to sell nukes. And that's been a great growth opportunity for me because that's a very big return on investment that I can invest in my colonies when I really need it in the springtime. It's let me develop as a beekeeper. In many respects, you don't really know something till you teach it, and there's a lot of teaching opportunities being part of a club, and that's really helped me evolve as a beekeeper. It also helped me interact with old timers, older beekeepers around me, and find out the stuff that wasn't in books that was hugely beneficial for myself. It's also afforded me premium stock selection. I'm part of the Queen Bee Breeders, and basically, we had access to really top of the line chewing and mite resistant stock, and that's part of my success stories, using that stuff, taking advantage of that opportunity. It's been a real benefit. And also national speaking engagements. Uh, I have parlayed my beekeeping experience and education work into speaking opportunities in New York, California, Nebraska, Tennessee, West Virginia, probably Ohio, this next few months. It's pretty awesome what bees can make happen for you, and it's something I really look forward to continuing to dive into. That's part of why I have this YouTube channel. So, in summary and conclusion, the joys of a strong bee club. There's a lot of benefits. Social benefits, economic benefits, educational benefits. Organization matters. You need to have a corporate governance structure, have a weak president, have power devolved into the board members, so that's always equitable, and have those agendas and have start time and end times and expectations through bylaws and GOGs. Events and programming, have a variety of things so you keep people engaged with what you're doing. That's beginner programs, that's programs for your middling beekeepers, that's advanced stuff, that's social events, that's potlucks. Vary it. That's what keeps people coming back. Deal with and head off destructive conflict. Conflict is part of beekeeping. We want to keep it constructive. When it gets personal, when it gets destructive, head it off. Defer it, delay it, put up those barriers so it doesn't grow out of control and end up splitting your club. And also volunteering. These clubs need people to make stuff happen. If you're really being honest with yourself about wanting to be a good beekeeper and a good member of the community, that means being part of the club and being part of the club's operations, not just showing up, not just doing your little BS thing on the side and talking about how great it is. No, you need to be part of the club. You need to put in the hours because they need it. That is how the community grows. And with that, I'll say thank you for your time sitting through this presentation. If you have any questions, shoot them to that YouTube comments page. If you like this, like and subscribe, comment away. I appreciate your all's time, and I'll say good luck and happy beaking.